The Housing First Subcommittee meeting has now commenced. It is June 25th at 4 p.m. This meeting is being held virtually. For those who are participating remotely, we ask that you mute yourselves until called upon to speak to avoid feedback and background noise. For those who have dialed in using the call-in number, dial *6 on your phone to unmute. Only use the chat function to request to speak. Also, to comply with the state open meeting law, attendance and votes will be done by way of roll call using audio. This meeting is being recorded. To comply with the state open meeting law, attendance and votes will be done by way of roll call using audio, not by using the chat function. So roll call, Chair Tisha Tallman here. Mindy Bernstein?
Here.
Mark Clark? He says, let's assume I'm here. Okay, I can see him in the gallery and his chat function is working and he can hear by audio. Wendy Asher is not present. First on the meeting agenda is a call to audience. If there are any audience members, if you'd like to talk, please go ahead and let us know and we'll let you open your audio. I do see there are two.
There are two people there, but no one's raised their hand.
Okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and move to agenda item number 2, the Housing First update. Austin?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I don't have significant updates related to the numbers since y'all met sort of recently and I gave some pretty robust numbers. An update, the Housing First Division, the mobile shower unit is down, so it's receiving some repairs before it is back out in the community up and running. The National Alliance to End Homelessness hosts an annual conference, and the Housing First team will be sending our director, Brandy Champion, and that manager, Allison Chappell, along with your continuum of care leads, myself and Elaine McPherson, and our HCD director, Ann Chineka. And so as a coordinated mighty group, we will be advocating for affordable housing and Housing First needs at the Capitol Hill opportunity to speak with elected officials and Senate and House representatives. The Housing Central Command Initiative, which is co-led by the Housing First Director, myself, and the interagency coordinator, Amaris Vasquez, has successfully housed 57 folks through that initiative in a 3-month period and is in the process of wrapping up the first round of continuous quality improvement to institutionalize some of the innovative processes and procedure changes that have promoted that swift entry into housing. One of those innovative changes and processes focuses on our homeless management information system lead, capturing data disaggregated in real time, and has created a assessment for outreach and navigation. So the continuum, along with the advocacy from Housing First and HCC, will begin to plan on how to scale that so that the community's outreach and navigation programs that are implementing that, not just through the Housing Central Command Initiative, can be affording real-time data. And the only other update I have is HCD, Ann Chineka, Sarah Mason, who is the development manager, and Ben Carpenter, who is the affordable housing manager, submitted recommendations to Dr. Keith Bentley, who was asked to serve on a panel for private philanthropists looking to gain insight and information on how to proactively promote affordable housing development.
Isha, can I also add
Sure,
to
please.
the HCD report? Um, Last week, the Amazon shelter opened up 2 cooltainers. These are repurposed containers, shipping containers, to be used for individuals who need to get out of the heat and get some rest. They're open um, Tuesday through Saturday from 12 to 5:30, and they open Thursday, and people have been using the cooltainers since Thursday. And also a big win for the city and HCD. City Council last week unanimously approved the conversion of old Fire Station 8 on Keene Road in Amphi into a resource center, the Amphi Resource Center. So we will HCD will be working on that real quick to get that up and running. And Wendy is coming in. So those
Great.
Neto.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Neto. Mindy or Mark, do you have any questions for Austin or Neto?
It's be
Go
real.
ahead. Yep.
Netta, what kind of supports does the resource center, is there any supports that the resource center needs or wants?
Well, certainly resources will be wraparound services will be at the resource center. So we'll find out more later as the plans are unveiled.
If it's helpful, the resource center was in its planned area development. So they finished that final phase. And so now that that has been approved, they can move forward with rehabilitating that site. And it's not yet open. So being able to identify any gaps in resources that are funded, they wouldn't have completed that yet.
And just thinking about offering what I might be able to do to help as a volunteer.
Thank you, Mindy.
Yeah.
And I do see that Wendy Asher is also present. We're just having some technical difficulties in elevating Wendy to panelist. But I did want to make sure that we noted that Wendy Asher is present. Okay, with no further questions for Housing First update, we'll go ahead and go to presentation and discussion by Kristen Olson-Garawal, who's with the Homing Project. You need to unmute.
I'm gonna put in the shared screen.
Yes, now's the time for that.
Thank you, Ernesto. It worked. The Homing Project, I'll try to just do a brief informational session about what I think most people are not familiar with. And I very much appreciate your input. The Homing Project is a 501c3 nonprofit. We've been in business since August of 2021. And our main goal is temporary housing for people experiencing homelessness using villages of micro homes with full support services. And the reason we chose to use micro homes and why not spend the money instead on affordable permanent housing is just simply a preference of dignity and stability, valuing dignity and stability now or rather than permanent later. And it's we understand that in the long term, there has to be permanent housing. People don't want to live in these for the rest of their lives, I would assume. we're using borrowed land, meaning that we have long-term free lease, including the donor is, excuse me, paying the land tax. We are will from now on be having $7,000 units built by Habitat for Humanity. We can get by using this combination, we can get more people sooner into stable housing. And the village provides an efficient means of providing services, meaning things such as a substance use dependence treatment, provides structure, which some people need. They, you know, that just simply living on their own is a doesn't work for them. It doesn't mean that they need to live in a cell, but by having access to structure, they are more functional. And it allows the person to concentrate on recovery and skill development rather than on housekeeping and the other many things that it takes to maintain permanent housing. The infrastructure we leave can be the first step for an apartment development. The very first housing, first piece of land that we are using is one from Southern Arizona Land Trust. It's up near Glen and Stone. It's just a small piece of land, 0.8 acres. They have been trying to develop it for the last 6 years. Southern Arizona Land Trust is a nonprofit which rents out property, houses and apartments for $600 below market value. So we sort of share the same endpoint, which is that people should be able to have permanent affordable housing. By putting in our village, which will require a water meter, the land will have to be prepped, and sewage and water connections, and electrical connections. There will be no gas. When we leave, we're working with Southern Arizona Land Trust so that when we put this infrastructure in, it will be where they need it. We'll also put in some of the parking spaces, and we'll put in what are those sidewalks. And by putting in this infrastructure, they hopefully will then be able to take it from there and put in the 12-unit apartment building that is already approved for that land. Let's see, the way that we work is the homing project is actually two parts. The homing project itself, that nonprofit, is responsible for basic services, temporary stable micro housing, meals made by residents, and they'll be taught by Casa Maria soup kitchen cooks at first, and then we'll have volunteers that may help if they need it. There'll be a small laundromat. It will have only washing machines and a clothesline, no dryers, just simply for cost reasons. Bathrooms and showers, and we're using the same provider as is making the city's portable ones, except that ours will connect. Ours won't be mobile, and they will connect to the sewer system. The social connection development is the other thing that we're responsible for. We'll try everything possible to get them to deal with any isolation that's developed. The village is being built in town as opposed to out in the sticks where we could afford the land. By putting it central, near Stone and Glen, the land is an acre there is quite expensive. But we don't want people to feel that they're marginalized, that they need to be kept out of sight. We'll do multiple leisure activities to help them find other activities rather than drugs for entertainment purposes with their leisure time. There'll be a life skills curriculum. And we have some volunteers who have professionally done this. And then, of course, we'll address the health issues, including substance use dependence and mental health. Um, this is a pallet shelter being assembled. It only takes two people to actually put the thing together. It goes on perfectly flat land. It requires no concrete pad or any preparation other than the land must be flat. They're 8 by 8. The ones that we'll be using are 8 foot by 8 foot, and which is 64 square feet. It fits a bed and a lot of storage space, or a table and chair if they would like that. A small table and chair. Most of the volunteers, the people who've done a lot of volunteering have slept in this. It's quite a comfortable bed. The heating is fine. The air conditioning was not. We put it up for, we have a demo house, and we set it in an asphalt parking lot for a week and ran it 24 hours a day for a week, using the air conditioning, a higher level air conditioning than they usually provide. We can only get it down to 81 degrees running constantly during the day. And so our architect recommended extra insulation, which has been installed in the ones that we bought. The extra insulation costs $3,000. Going forward, these houses, a sort of a slightly improved variant, including insulation, will cost $19,000 each. The efficient size of these villages, based on the experience of there's 110 of these throughout the country. The best size for cost efficiency and also just for people management is about 100 units. So that will cost close to $2 million just for the houses if we were to continue to use these houses. So we've we've had meetings with Habitat for Humanity, and using their Chuck Center, they have developed a, a micro home that it does not look like this. But it will be easily mobile since we will be using borrowed land. And they said they can build it for easily under $7,000 each, which is a savings of over $1 million. The second half of our village is the responsibility of Catalytic Health Partners, Inc., which is a business owned and formed by a woman by the name of Susan Kortst. She herself has been homeless for 5 years when she was a teenager, which is many years ago. But she still is very aware of her previous experience. They will provide an on-site social worker full-time, and we probably, for our initial site, because of zoning requirements, we can only have 10 people initially. We probably won't need a full-time social worker. So we've made that social worker, in theory, available to Pavarello House, which is just a block and a half from us. The screening for that person will screen for the need for medical, mental health, and substance use related services. And they'll refer them out if needed to, excuse me, to the contracted providers that Susan's organization has. It's quite extensive. They've been in business for about 10 years. We will refer to they're contracted, and finally the end point, of course, is permanent housing, and they will do 1 year follow-up, the social worker, just to make sure that the person is successful in moving out. And we're using the housing first model, which is housing first but not housing only. The resident doesn't have to be in recovery, but there's no drugs, alcohol, or weapons allowed inside. There'll be a locker at the outside entry. We'll have an on-site security guard 24/7, and we'll use a double fence with a distance of about 10 feet between the two layers. And the idea there is that they can't easily pass drugs between the two, pass drugs in, that people can leave and they can get drugs. They can't bring them back in. And that usually is a deterrent. They Someone has pointed out that most people probably could throw drugs, a drug package 10 feet. Yes, they could. But there's an issue of trust. This is used actually in prisons. And the person selling, unless they've already been paid, they won't throw it. And the person, they keep waiting for the person to pass the money, to throw the money over. And so, and then if it's thrown, it's usually seen in a place as small as ours. We will not have cameras. We don't want people to feel that they're in a prison. But the layout of this small unit will be that all the houses face towards the guard center. The dining room will be an actually open air on a with a canopy, and we'll have uh, essentially swamp coolers and then heaters in winters. And the laundry will be missing the front wall so that security has a clear view in, so that someone doing their laundry at midnight will feel secure. As I mentioned, we're using borrowed land. It's amazing how easy it is actually. Developers are quite willing to give you land, but we want land that is on a bus line, because even once they're with it, we don't want to get a van and make people dependent on our transportation. They won't have a car usually when they leave, and we don't want to inspire them to get a car. We'd like them to be comfortable getting around on their own by the time they leave, if they aren't already, and near services and jobs. And to get land in that area is somewhere around at least $250,000 an acre. To lower the overall program cost, we're doing this obviously for that reason. Southern Arizona Land Trust is the one that we started with. As they said when they considered it, it's not their mission, but it's consistent with it. Our infrastructure is placed just so they can use the apartment, as I mentioned. Okay, and we actually have the micro homes here. They are stored at Habitat for Humanity's warehouse. They are unassembled, and people who assemble them will be bringing them, be flying down to assemble them when it's time for them to be in, which we hope they'll be put in November for an opening in December. And there it is. That is the layout, which I don't know if we really can understand what's going on, but those tiny little squares are the houses. The majority of people will be either one person, or the occupants will be one person, or maybe a parent with a child. Talking to other communities like that, it's recommended to even give married couples each their own little house, because otherwise it turns out that that's too small a space for two adults. We'll be using a converted 40-foot shipping container as a commercial kitchen. 40 feet obviously is huge for a 10 people unit, but we will soon be moving to our second site, which will be 4.3 acres. And that one we will gradually build up to 100 units. And so this 40-foot kitchen is intended for that site. The bathrooms, as I mentioned, are from the Comforts of Home place. And we'll also have egg-laying hens, and we'll have community gardens both on the to the right. There'll be community gardens. There's raised beds for our occupants, and then out on the left, that big square at the sort of at the bottom, that is for the neighborhood. That was the one thing that we were invited by the Keeling neighborhood. They told us of this property because they are having a lot of problems with people in their neighborhood who are homeless. And they asked us to put in this, but one of the things they asked for is, could we find a space, a green space for them? So that will be a community garden. It'll be fenced in, and there are a couple of people in the neighborhood who actually work with the community gardens that already exist, one of them being Mission Garden, and they'll take responsibility for running it. Any questions?
Any of the commissioners have questions? Go ahead, Mindy.
Yeah, I know that they make units that are built for two people.
Uh-huh.
Was that a consideration for the married couples?
These are for two people.
Okay.
Yeah, you can actually, we have a demo house that we put at churches, and it's been 3 times now at the Tucson Mall. They keep inviting us back. People find them very interesting. But you can there's room for 2 beds. But talking with places that have done that, they said actually they've had problems with domestic violence in couples who live together, whereas they don't have problems with that if they give them their own. So you just give them 2. Each one has their own sitting room essentially, and they can sleep in the same one, but they also can have their own space if they want.
Chris, this is Ernesto, HCD. Would you, if you don't need to share your screen anymore, could you unshare, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice.
Any questions from Mark or Wendy?
Okay.
Yeah, hi, this is Wendy. I finally got the audio and the unmute working. Thank you all. So I wasn't able to hear all of it because I had to like restart and get on a different apparatus. But I was wondering if you did mention sort of what the criteria is for people participating, what kind of wait list will be maintained, that kind of issue.
Well, the one thing that we actually went and visited a few of these villages over in California and have talked to ones as far away as Rhode Island. And the questions we asked all of them was, what if you were doing this all over again, what would you do, and what would you not do that you've done? And one of the things that all of them recommended was, don't do your own wait list. Don't have the applications taken on site, because people actually set up tents for months in advance to try to get a place, and they even set up tents afterwards, hoping that someone will leave and they can be first in line. So we would like to go through. I've met with Susanna Rodriguez about going through the HMIS system. And that's our social worker will be trained on that. And at first we're just going to have 10 people. The criteria for that will be we'd like to take the most vulnerable people, which in a way your system's already programmed for, but it's those who are aging out of foster care, which will be under 25, and older people, particularly those who've either been in there for a long time, out on the street for a long time, or for the very first time, so over 50. And then they have to have a behavioral health diagnosis for zoning reasons. Shelters are in the same category as rehab, drug rehab. And there is a drug rehab place within 1,200 feet of our site, which actually is perfect. We will be referring people over there for outpatient drug treatment. But as things stand now, the zoning is, we cannot be, if we are just a shelter. So we will have a behavioral health population. And we hope that actually several of those are, we'd like to preferentially take people who have domestic violence history. And that in itself is not a diagnosis. But it's information that's on the intake. So that's our criteria.
And just to follow up, thank you for that nice comprehensive answer. Will there be criteria for people being able to remain in the houses?
The criteria is basically until we can get permanent housing. And you know, one of the things that we got from other places that we visited was the very first place we visited said, don't open this unless you're willing to keep people for 2 to 4 years. They said that when they started, they expected 3 to 6 months, piece of cake. They'd have the mental health problems, the substance use, and find them a job and a house, and they'd be out in 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, no one was gone. And they said that finally, when it hit them, that the problem was the housing. And they said at this point, it's 2 to 4 years that they're keeping people. And that's pretty much California. We saw places in Southern California and places in Northern California. And we also talked to places up in Colorado. And they also that they were amazed how long people had to stay just because there was nowhere to go. And so we figure we'll use that opportunity to make sure that people have a living wage. If they are workforce eligible, that we will be screening them for what their job, what kind of job they can do. And either, arrange through Voc Rehab, the Chuck Center at Habitat for Humanity. They will do on-the-job training. And so we're in the process of setting up locations where people could train to get jobs that will pay a living wage, which, you probably know is $20 or more here in Tucson for someone who works full-time.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners?
Chris, what would you say some of your bigger challenges were in getting funding and the place, the land that you are on?
Well, it's the biggest, the very first place we had land was Ward 5, and we had gone and met with Councilman Fimbres before we even started the nonprofit, because he was, he's someone who's an advocate for people who are unhoused, and thought it was a great idea. But then when he got informed by Patrick DeConcini, who was our first landowner, that he had given us 9 acres down in Ward 5, he was very upset and said no. Everyone sends all their their homeless projects there. And we tried to convince him that this was not a homeless project, but a housing project. But he just wasn't buying. So we decided to not go into that place. And the second place that we got was 4.3 acres, and that will actually be our second site to use. But it was surrounded by an awful lot of drug use. And we decided we weren't experienced enough to go setting up a place because there would be hiccups and people who are NIMBY, not in my backyard, would say, we told you so. So we decided we needed sort of a friendly place to go work out our job assignments and stuff. And so that's when we got contacted by Keeling Neighborhood, and they asked us to come there. And that's in Ward 3 where uh, Kevin Dahl is very supportive. And by the way, Councilman Fimbres is very supportive of our project, but just not starting it in Ward 5. And then the thing of funding is, we're an upstart. You know, I've done grants for 25 years, and, you know, grants are a piece of cake. If you're doing it from the university in your area of expertise. But if you're an upstart, you know, a new agency, and it's an area which is definitely not my area of expertise. We've gradually assembled, of course, people who know this, but we actually have a major donor lined up for our second site because they invited me for an interview and said, what what if they said they would give us the $500,000 after we had started the first site? And I said, after we had started the village that I was telling him about. I said, well, then we'd start a second village. He said, good, that's the answer we want. And we have another, not $500,000, but another donor who's told us that, you know, let's see how this goes, and they would be interested. So it's you know, and at first we were invited to apply for a few places, and then the invitation was withdrawn after we had applied because they said we didn't realize you were less than 3 years old. So being new is a problem. But this year we turned 3. So that has made a difference. There are a number of places now that we've been invited to submit grants that we weren't eligible for.
Yeah.
And just one other thing, we have had a huge response from volunteers. There's a number of people lots of people in the community who want to do something about homelessness and don't know what to do. And we've even been sending our volunteers to other places and saying, you know, since we don't have anything for you to do at the moment, how about going to working with this group? So,
Wonderful.
Thank you, Kristen. We appreciate you being with us. We're going to be moving on to the next agenda item. You're welcome to stay. You can also go ahead and leave if you like.
Can I ask one unrelated question? Unrelated
Sure.
to my friend. Who is who did the shipping containers for the cooltainers? Who repurposed them?
The state did,
Can you?
the state did, Chris.
Oh, and that's available to you, but not to a private group.
That I don't know. I
Okay.
will email you the contact information I have, contact
Okay.
person I have from the state, okay?
And Chris,
Okay, otherwise we have to send it. Yeah, the further we
COC.
send it, the first. What is Austin?
I was saying that we can email you. We are on that advocacy council with the health department, so we can connect you as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Chris.
We'll move to agenda item number 4, which is additional research. If any of the commissioners have anything additional that they'd like to talk about or explore or potentially invite for the next commission meeting. Anyone? Do we want to revisit the individual who we had invited and had to cancel because the meeting was changed for lack of quorum?
My thoughts about this is, as I'm learning, I started off with the thought of a sanctioned campground with tents, and not that I liked it, felt dehumanizing. Then I looked at the pallet company that is building the village for the homing project, and they are actually, you're able to lock the door. So tents have become tents you have no ability to secure. And my point is, I am hoping that the city of Tucson would be interested in investing in building a village out of the micro pallet homes. So I don't think, for me, I don't think I need to hear, I've moved past the sanctioned campgrounds and am more in favor of the micro homes. I think, but I don't feel any need to hear from more people.
Okay, thank you, Mindy. Mark or Wendy, how do you feel about any additional information? The purpose of this research and discussion was to make a recommendation to the full commission on whether or not they should make a vote to then decide whether to make recommendations to the city and council.
This is Wendy. So I agree with Mindy's concerns about sanctioned camping, not having a way for people to actually protect their possessions, whatever they may have, because it would be in a tent. But I also think that given some of the recent actions of removing people from some of the places where they had been camping, like along, was it along Kolb? You know, the city put out reasons why they were doing it. I don't know how valid those reasons were because it had to do with some underground safety issues. I'm not going to second guess the logic of that, but I just think the environment, the political environment right now isn't really going to be one that is sympathetic to camping. So I think we'd be chasing something and putting energy somewhere that is unlikely to have a positive outcome, as opposed to the program that was just described to us, or Mindy's suggestion about finding a way to build medium-term or short-term shelters that would keep people safer from the elements and would be somewhere that was sanctioned. I don't know if is that accurately reflect what you were saying, Mindy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any suggestion on additional research, additional speakers, or any additional follow-up, Mark?
What?
Any additional suggestion on additional research or requesting speakers?
Sorry, I had to step away for a minute, but I don't have anything there to do.
I have a question for you, Mark.
Yes.
I remember when I had brought up the sanctioned campgrounds and tents, that was not something that felt really good to you.
Yeah, I would say that would not be the first place I would go.
And how do you feel about these little micro houses that have a locking door?
I didn't hear a lot of that presentation between cars, and there is something weird going on in the Zoom world and actually with my iPhone as well today. So I'm a little bit mystified and had all kinds of technology problems, which I've never had before. So I think I feel better about that, but a lot of that all I think has really to do with essentially who's kind of supporting the community, and how does that work out? My guess would be smaller is better than bigger, and it sounds like that's what they're trying to do, and an experiment that they're conducting. So
The company, the pallet company that makes these micro homes, they also make little laundry rooms and kitchens and community rooms. They don't sell their product to just anyone. They have a requirement that there be on-site supports, wraparound services, and a few other criteria, which I thought was fascinating when I read through their website of the requirements of what a village for homeless, for people who have been unhoused would require. And that's a great question. Who's going to pay for everything? But we know that, I think all of us know that people need wraparound services. They need recovery supports and medical care and security for themselves and their belongings. I, for a fact, know that the city of Tucson has a plot of land on 22nd and 10th. I think it's 12 acres that has been unused and undeveloped since 1971.
I believe the city is actually working on that plot as we speak.
Mindy, Mark, this is Ernesto. That 12 acres on South 10th, it's just south of 22nd, has long been used by environmental services.
Right.
Okay.
And it is being decommissioned,
Right.
and the city HCD is proposing to build affordable housing, but it has long been used by the city of Tucson.
There's a refuse transfer station, and
Correct.
I think it's kind of across the street from Southside Presbyterian Church. And,
Correct.
But I got the impression maybe it was in the county commission. I can't imagine we talked about it there. Maybe it was in the city commission. I get my commissions confused sometimes. But that they were, no, it's the city, because the departments had neighborhood meetings out there. And there's been conversation about it, that particular plot, that particular dirt, because there's concern. Some neighbors, there's been, I think, articles, there's some web traffic about it related to whether there's environmental contamination because of its prior usages. Nesto, did I make all that up?
No. It was the subject of the last commission meeting.
That's what I thought.
Yes,
okay.
There are some concerns about some related environmental areas, not on the site itself. We have done environmental studies, and we will continue to do environmental studies. But there is no discussion of using that 12 acres for pallet microgrids.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, I got the impression they were trying to figure out how to do regular housing.
Correct.
Yeah. So excuse me, I need a backup. I'm sorry again, because the technology problems I was having, among other problems. The woman from homing, so the pallets are a different thing than the homing, whatever homing is doing? Or are you calling that pallets? Because I thought I heard her say they were getting their housing unit, their stock from Habitat for Humanity. No? Did I make that up?
Habitat's going to assist with the installation and will also assist with some workforce development once the village is complete. So I've got a comment. One is if we could follow up and maybe get the presentation circulated so that Mark can see the full presentation. Is that possible for someone to do? I don't know who made the direct contact with Kristen.
Yes, I will ask Chris if she'll provide us with her PowerPoint. Also, this meeting is, and all meetings are recorded, and you can obtain that on the commission website.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. So let's go ahead and get it circulated to the commissioners for the subcommittee. And then my second comment would be, since this hasn't, she said there were 110 pallet shelters, 110 units across the nation. Southern Arizona project is just going to happen. Installation November, open house in December. I've got two thoughts. One is climate resilience and length of time that the pallet shelters that actually, and then, zoning issues, of course, how long can they be on the property, whatever property. And I guess the other issue is regarding data. And, I'm also wondering whether we should wait and see the initial collection of data and how things go, how they're received, how they work in our climate. I just think there's a lot of unknowns, and since the project is going to be starting, that maybe before we make a recommendation, that we see how some of the early data returns are coming back. Just a thought. I mean, we could also make recommendations to the full commission that this be on a list of potential items that we have explored and that maybe the city wants to consider. I don't know whether the city has considered homing project already, but those are just some thoughts. How would you all like to proceed for the next agenda? Is there anything else, any other speakers that we want to call, any additional research we want to do, any follow-up on this item?
Do we want to talk to Rachel Milne about Phoenix? Their sanction, they have tent. They have a sanctioned tent camp.
Right. I think if there's still an interest, since we had already called her to present, I don't find any harm in seeing if she's available for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Other commissioners? Okay. Okay, so why don't we do that before we move on? Any suggestion or further comment on the homing project? We'll bring the next presenter that we'd already asked to invite them to speak. And who would like to handle that? Is that Austin or?
I can.
Thanks, Nato.
Welcome.
Yeah. And then Austin also has some information from a presentation that was just given to the COC board today by Keith Bentley of University of Arizona, CIRO. I think it's Southwest Institute on Research on Women. And so, Austin, if you could go ahead and circulate that, and that perhaps that will prompt additional information that we might want to research or query. I appreciate that, Austin. So that'll be coming to you as well, commissioners. Any additional items we want to put on for the next agenda?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have, I'm aware that there are what's called a housing and service accelerator initiatives that have been funded by the Medicaid program. There are like 9 or 10 demonstrations of those around the country, and Arizona actually has one of those. Access actually is one of those 9 accelerator demonstration programs. They call their program, I think, OS2 or something like that. Some of the funding for that initiative, and certainly some of the technical assistance for that initiative, is targeted at older adults, which is how PCOA got roped in. I'm technically on their core team. I'm actually supposed to be sitting in a conference in DC right now, a HUD HHS conference that I had to back out of, focused on this. I believe Terry Galligan from the department and potentially one other person from the department have gone to that conference, specifically targeted at adults with serious mental illness. Tisha, are you know what I'm talking about? No? Okay.
No, I don't, but I just, Austin just made a comment that Brandy is also.
Brandy's the other one.
And the continuum of care lead also participates in that accelerator with, we were invited by Liz DaCosta from Access.
Yeah, and that's who I've been invited by, and I've been in a couple of meetings, but somehow I don't think I've ever crossed over with other folks. So I don't know if there's something there to be talked about. It's been very, it's very housing oriented, and so I mean, it's a good idea. I would imagine it might be we might be interested in hearing what Liz has to say. Liz DaCosta has to say about what they're doing. I know right now there's a lot of conversation about connecting vouchers to folks with serious mental illness. Honestly, it sounds a lot like stuff that was going on back in the 2012, 2013. So
Right.
I'm, what?
Yeah, I said right. Yeah, I think it'd be great if we could, can we bring someone from the core team? Who would you recommend, Mark?
Well, the access lead for this initiative is Elizabeth Acosta.
Okay.
And I think, Austin and Brandy, it sounds like, know her,
Uh-huh.
might be able to get her in.
I can send an email similar to the one that I sent to Dr. Bensley.
I am not familiar with the core acceleration program.
That's why we're going to have a briefing on it.
Okay.
Right,
Thanks.
right. So Austin, can you make that ask for us for the next one?
I sure can.
Thank you so much. All right, so I think we have an agenda. We'll do, Neto will do our call to audience. We'll do the Housing First update. And we'll try to get either both or one of the suggested presenters for the next agenda. And then I think item 4 or 5 would then be additional discussion and questions in the next step.
Tisha, just to be clear, I understand there's the discussion right now. There was possibly 3 invitees for next meeting. Rachel Milne from Phoenix, Dr. Keith Bentley from the U of A, and the person that Mark just mentioned.
No, we're not going to ask Keith. We're going to review his information first before.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there will be 2 documents the commissioners should receive following this meeting. One is the Keith Bentley presentation. The other one is a presentation made by Chris Olson Garawal today. And then there are 2 presenter requests. One is Elizabeth De Costa, and the other one is Rachel Milne.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, commissioners?
Nope. Thank you so much for all of you. Thank you all so much for moving forward with getting curious about this. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I am too. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you all.
Tisha, I have a couple of things real quick.
Oh, sure.
Just that you know, on the agenda, there is no July commission meeting.
Right.
I'd put out a doodle poll, but then there was some confusion, so Jim asked to just cancel the meeting for July. However, tomorrow, or certainly the next day, I'm going to send out the memo for mayor and council for approval by commissioners by email. So be looking out for that, please.
Thank you.
Austin, you wrote that this is your last meeting with us?
Oh, yes. My last day with the city of Tucson is July 17th.
Oh,
When we just start being so comfortable with some, where are you going?
Austin.
I'm going to the Corporation for Supportive Housing
oh,
to
wow.
serve on their federal technical assistance team.
Oh, that's incredible.
Will you still be
Thank
in
you for all
Tucson?
your
Austin?
help.
I will still be in Tucson.
Well,
and
congratulations, I believe, are due.
thank you, Wendy.
Nice.
It's been so great working with you for over a decade.
I
now.
know. It's nice to see you. I'll let Ray know that I have seen your face and that you are
Thank
moving
you.
on to something else in town.
Well, and hopefully you'll drag some CSH resources into Pima County, because
Yeah. The city has a contract with CSH for different types of technical assistance,
Great.
and they are assigned to us for our Housing Central Command sustainability TA. So
cool. Oh, so you'll be
Thank you.
that's wonderful.
And if there's anything that Southern Arizona Legal Aid can do, you know where to find me.
sure do, Wendy.
Not too much, though.
Just enough.
Just enough. Exactly.
Same, Austin. Appreciate
Right.
you. Thank you for supporting
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm getting that email out to Liz right now.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone, we are adjourned.
Okay, bye-bye.
Come on. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.